Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. It's good to see you. And today we're going to be talking about Freeways. You know, that's Alex and Josh from not only Freeway Ministry, but part of our church, because Freeway is a part of our church. And you guys have come in and just been such a great team. Alex has been awesome on worship. So thankful for her. This is Corey, as you already know, and I'm John, as you might not know, but I am. Today we're talking about Freeway and what it looks like. And so when we're talking about Freeway, it's been one of the most influential things in my life that I've seen in ministry. It's been so cool to see, like, this is ministry that Jesus directly is blessing and showing up for and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just really cool to see it as, thankfully, not having to be the leader. Glad you're here leading it. But it's so cool just to see the fruit of stuff happening. And so I think one of the most helpful things for us would be to kind of get a timeline. We talked about a year ago about all the things that God was setting up for Freeway and had started, but there's been so much that's happened in this past year, like crazy amounts of blessing and fruit. So can you kind of give us a timeline from this past year, what that's actually looked like for Freeway Ministry?
Yeah, so it's happened so fast, and I don't think any of us expected for it to happen the way it did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, January 14th last year is when we launched. That was our Freeway launch date. So the first week of January last year, it was the first time that we did a Freeway podcast with Orlando Baptist Church.
Yeah, that was super fun.
Yeah.
We had 3 men fly down from Springfield. That the 3 men that we were praying to, one of them potentially surrender a year to come down here and be in ministry full time to lead the men's discipleship house. We had no idea which one that was going to be, and we had Jason, Trey, and Josh. And through God's perfect plan and His timing with all of it, because we had a lot of hoops what we had to jump through for probation and parole to get transferred. They called it interstate compact to say, hey, we're going to release this person that is a felon to go from the state of Missouri across the country and go under the jurisdiction of Florida. And in their mind, it's you're going to now be their problem as a felon and under their probation and parole. But God approved it, and He worked out all the perfect timelines and plans and all the logistics from it. And now Josh Pruitt is here as our house leader, which, I mean, the biggest answer for prayer.
Yeah.
And he's not just a house leader, like he's impacting this church, he's impacting the school, the relationships. He knows more people here than I do. Like it's
He knows everybody.
He's legitimately one of the best people I've ever met in my life.
and it's a blessing. Like in the heart that he has, and Dustin saw it too when we went out that day with all the men in our team from Springfield, is the heart that Josh had for people and his burden for people. That's stuff you can't teach in a seminary class.
Yeah.
Like that is a God-given gift, and we've just been able to see it be cultivated over this past 8 months that he's been with us for training and equipping and leadership. So it's been such a blessing. So that was kind of like the catalyst of it kicking off. And then, our regular Saturday night services. The first night we had a lot of people here because we had the cold weather shelter, which doesn't normally happen here in Florida.
Right.
We probably had like 120 people here, packed out the room. We thought it was just biggest we'll ever be. And then as we started going consistently after that, just to our regular services on Saturday nights, we were having probably about 40, 50, 60 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and we're like, this is awesome. It's going to start growing, and but at the same time, it was kind of like, man, we went from 100 plus first night to 40,
It
50,
always happens that way.
Yeah.
and then I mean, it took, I'd say maybe like 6 weeks, and within 6 weeks, we were already at over 100 people. And I know it's not about numbers, but just to see the reason these people were there is because mainly, I mean, they're not seeing the Instagram reels or the Facebook plugs. Like, they were coming through word of mouth from the people that have been here, that experience Freeway, the love of our people, the love of our volunteers, the resources we have. And because of that, now we're seeing almost between 140 to 150 every Saturday night now. And that's a regular, consistent number, which is just ridiculous. I mean, we bust in over 80 people every Saturday night now, and the rest of them come on their own.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so, you say numbers. Every number is a name. Every name is a story, and every story matters to God. So it's so important.
That's good.
Like, numbers are encouraging. Honestly, they can be discouraging, but it's really cool to see how God has been growing this. So I want to hear two different things. I want to hear one for both of you guys. What were your prayers like in that time of the dip? Like, there's a big term, the dip. Like, if you ride out the dip, you can see incredible faith or incredible fruit from your faith in the dip. what were your prayers like during that time? So I want to know your prayers during that time, and I also want to hear the story of how you got all these vans and buses and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first, what were your prayers like?
Yeah, my prayer was, of course, Lord, would you grow it? Because we want to see your people, we want to see them, come to know you as their Savior. That's why we want the numbers. And also the other side of that prayer was, Lord, help me to not miss the ministry that's happening now when the numbers are lower than I would like them to be. Yeah. But knowing that you're still doing something, no matter how many people are in this room. And maybe it's actually for our volunteers, like we don't want to forget our volunteers are also being ministered to on a Saturday night. We're all going through something. We're all dealing with something in our lives. And I've heard so many stories of volunteers who come and then later on they say, that message was for me, you know? And so when the numbers of like our guests who come are low, I start to think of our volunteers who maybe they're the ones we're supposed to be reaching right now, So, or maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one who needs to be worked on tonight. So my prayer honestly was just like, Lord, open my eyes to see what you're already doing.
Yeah.
I know you're doing something, so just help me to be content with what you've brought to us tonight at Saturday night service. So, and then when the numbers started to grow, it was like, okay, now we are bursting at the seams. Now what do we do?
It's like God answered too fast.
And that's kind of how I felt. I'm like, Lord, you answered my prayer, so quickly. And what I love to see is the people who started to come at the very beginning are still coming now, which is my favorite thing, to connect with people over and over again every Saturday. So
Before you answer, can you all talk about the volunteers in our church and just like what you've seen since January and how many people or some highlights from that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we did our interest meeting and we did 2 different nights just to make it applicable for everybody to show up. And both nights we had all the volunteer lists completely filled. And people were all in, not fully knowing. Like, we gave them a rundown of Freeway and they heard us talk about it. They've heard Dustin talk about it, but they've never really seen it. Like, they've never seen it, what it looks like working it. And it's just different. I mean, we go to churches all the time and we pitch Freeway, we tell them about Freeway. But until you're there and physically seeing it working, seeing the 8 different areas of ministry that take place on a Saturday night to make it work, it hits different when you're there in person. And we've had just such amazing volunteers. It takes anywhere from 25 to 30 on a Saturday night to make it work. That's from worship to security to clothing, children's ministry, volunteer for driving. There's just so many different areas. Food. And it takes a lot to make it work. And our volunteers are there, and they've been so faithful and continuing every Saturday, and a lot of them are the same ones serving on Sunday too. So we're so grateful for that, because we know there's jobs, there's family, and the weekend, that's your Saturday and Sunday, and you're giving up both. So we're just so incredibly grateful, and our team leaders, they've owned it. They've owned their spots and positions where they're not just scheduling people, but we've seen them pour into people, build relationships. We've seen people that have been in church together for a lot of years that haven't really spent time together or hung out or associated, now that are getting really close and like weekly, like on their own, like going out to lunch, or team leaders. We have people like Janet and Neil. They lead a team on Saturday nights for our Aspire Men's Health, and they're taking our volunteers that are from OBC out after service, and they have fellowship and they go to dinner together. Like those are relationships being knit together by God's just sovereignty through this. So our volunteers have just been huge with that. So,
and I feel like it might be a third to a half of our like church is involved in some way, which is
I've noticed
amazing.
that there are people who don't serve at the regular OBC events, but serve every Saturday. That is their ministry right there. And I think some of them maybe were just waiting for that thing that they felt like they could totally invest in, and Freeway is that for a lot of people.
So the guys are doing incredible things, which is amazing. But this, just a couple weeks ago, was one of the craziest services I'd seen. Can you explain what that was and what happened.
Yeah, so we had it was our big Thanksgiving outreach. So it was our first outreach that we've done here on campus. We've gone in the community, done some other ones like at this capacity, but we've never done one here on our campus here. So we started just praying and putting it together. Holidays are hard for our people group that we reach. They're not sitting at family dinner tables and under roofs and having hot meals. So we wanted to be special for that aspect. And through that draws in a lot of people that don't normally even come. So we were able to go out a couple weeks before, hit the streets, pass out some flyers. And our goal was to let them know, listen, we're going to do a home cooked, like a full spread Thanksgiving meal from the turkey to the ham, desserts, pie, everything. And then free haircuts, and then a free sleeping bag for every single person that comes to the street. And it doesn't get super cold here, but when you're on the street, it gets cold, and it's been pretty cold lately
right now.
too. Yeah,
it's 45
so
degrees.
it's hard, and as soon as it rains once, a lot of sleeping bags that they're getting aren't fully waterproof. So those are things that are like huge for it. And then we did socks, underwear, and hygiene kits for every single person, which is stuff that we have sometimes, but not consistently. So we were able to have Original Mattress Factory and Janie Roofing come together and help us financially to make sure that we had enough of those things for every single person. And we just started pushing it out and praying. And as we were doing that, it was our first one here on campus. We got the barbers, all the hairstylists. We ended up having 10. And, my thing, when I got that list the night before, I'm like, what if nobody shows up? Like, what if nobody comes? And then I'm like, well, Josh, we have our regular, that's at least 130, 150 right there. But I'm like, well, what if they don't want haircuts, or what if they don't want this? And then I just, that whole night before, just started getting in my head about it. And then just having to be like, well, listen, like, God put this on your heart. You know that. You guys prayed about it. You followed it. OBC, you guys, church, staff, leadership, Dustin, like, you guys were behind, and that makes such a big difference. And then that night happened, and the next morning woke up, and then I got hit with, wow, so they're going to be here from 3 o'clock to about 7:30. That's a long time. And they're not going to have a way home until after that. And I didn't know what to think. And at 3 o'clock, our first wave of transportation came in. The buses unloaded, and people just started flooding, going to the clothing bank, going to the haircuts. And it was such a sweet spirit just instantly. I just had this piece, and like, Josh, these people have nowhere else to go. They're going to be right back on the street, nowhere else to sit. Here they're going to be having conversations, food, coffee, and like, it's hard to remember that because we get so focused on like, hey, your church service can't be too long because people have, but our people group,
culture.
Like they literally have nowhere to go after this. So they had 3.5 hours where they got to feel loved on, and people talked to them and didn't treat them like projects and treated them with dignity, and they got things that made them feel like they had some dignity, like a clean pair of socks, a clean pair of underwear. And it had just rained for like 3 days straight before this, like nonstop raining. So everyone that showed up, they were talking about like, all our stuff is just soaked. We don't have a way to wash it, clean it. So it was such an amazing night. And before service started, I just looked around, and we're pulling chairs in from everywhere we have. We have no space left. We had 228 people there, packed out. They did 60 haircuts in 2 hours. 60 haircuts. It was nonstop, one after another. And it was amazing. And what a haircut. Like, just think about when you get a haircut. It feels good. Now put yourself in a position where you don't get haircuts, you don't get clean clothes, you don't take showers, you don't have that accessibility, and you get to have that. So I believe God worked in such a mighty way, just softening hearts before the service even happened, before worship happened, before the message, before the testimony, through that. And I think that's just like at the end of the night why, as I was giving the altar call, I didn't even get to finish giving my pitch for the altar call, and they started flooding the altars. I had to get on the microphone and say, hey, if there's anybody here from OBC and you're available, please come up. Like, we need more counselors right now. So I mean, it was just so sweet, and it was completely God. Like, that was not planning, that was not throwing an event, that was God's hand just moving through that.
And another thing to note too is when you bring in that many people, plus those people are usually on the street, plus not all of our regular people too, plus new people that we don't know, there's always a potential that something could happen. People get in fights, or you're dealing with a very different kind of group of people. That night we had extra security, no issues.
Yeah.
No problems. Everybody who came was calm. They were collected. Even during the preaching, there's usually somebody going through their bag or something.
Or a
which
phone
is like,
going off.
Yes, it's like something's always distracting. But that night, it was like just peace, And that was the Lord.
Yeah.
I totally agree that the Lord was working on hearts before that night ever started.
Yeah.
And I believe he calmed the spirits that were in the room, so that was cool too, to recognize that God was involved in every aspect of the evening was incredible.
Yeah. And I love that you guys got businesses involved to help out. It just reminds me of like what happened in Ephesus, where people are getting transformed and the Holy Spirit's kind of moving through the church at the time. And so businesses start to change and they start being a part of the cause.
Yeah.
And so it's just really cool that you guys did that. Okay, so that night was incredible. But what, like, as you're looking forward, what are the things you're praying for? What kind of things do you guys need as a ministry? What's some stuff that people can be aware of what you're really praying for God to do from this point on?
Yeah, so we're excited and we're expectant of 2024 as we've just spent time just praying through, okay, God, what's next with this? Because it's been 11 months and you've done so much so quick. And our number one prayer is, because God has grown it so fast, we just want to steward what he's already given us well. And we know that's just being diligent to what's in front of us right now, but also being aware of he's growing us, not just to keep us, but to continue growing us, because we have a further reach to make a kingdom impact through that. So 2024 going in, we have a couple things. One is our relationship with Aspire Mental Health, which is huge here through Florida. So we've been able for the last 8 months to pick up the men's Aspire rehab every week. It started with, hey, let's do once a week, or let's do every other week, and let's kind of build this relationship, see how this works, to now we have an amazing relationship with them. We pick them up every single Saturday. The director there, she is absolutely amazing. She texted me on Sunday and said, hey, I'm having a lot of clients ask for Bibles. Is that something you guys could help us with at a secular rehab? And I said, we'll be there Wednesday. I'll bring a full case.
That's cool.
So with that, we now started on Wednesday. So yesterday, Corey, Eddie, and I, we got to go there and do our first Bible study there. So we're going to be there every single Wednesday from 1 to 2. So that gives us opportunity to build relationships outside just of the Saturday service. But there's also a lot of men that don't, they're not able to come on Saturdays because they're just entering. So we met a lot of men yesterday that don't come on Saturdays, or they just got there 2 days ago. I mean, fresh off the streets, fresh detoxing. And we just sat for an hour and answered questions and just walked through God's word. So that's a big one as we continue to grow with that. And then our women's. So the women's is just down the street from us. And it's unique because it's a 6-month rehab. It's a medical facility. They're able to have their children if they have young infants there, which not a lot of places do that. And so we have an opportunity to go in and minister to these women in such a unique, just broken, searching, looking for answers in some way, sort. And we have an opportunity to be there. So I'm really excited about that. Alex and Brooke are going to take that over and lead that. So that's something for 2024. And then our prison ministry. So right before we launched, we had Ricky Dixon reach out. He's the head of the Department of Corrections for the state of Florida. And he came down to the discipleship house about 5 months ago. We gave him a tour through the house, and he said, listen, I'm a Christian. I see what's happening in the prison systems. I've been in this position for 2 years. It's a revolving door. It's not working. I want to give you guys full access. I oversee 145 prisons in the state of Florida, 96,000 inmates in the state of Florida. He said, I will give you guys full access. You don't have to go and do applications for each prison. You don't have to go through all the hoops and talking to each warden. He said, I will make one phone call. You guys can have full access. You can do revivals. You can preach. You can do classes. You can hold church services. Whatever you want to do, I'm behind you. Let me know what you need. And so that's a lot. So it's like, where do you start? So we have one here, the Central Florida Diagnostic and Reception Center, CFRDC. And so our goal is to start there in January. I'm trying to go in once a week there. So I'm meeting with the warden there. and that's going to be kind of our first step. And then we're praying we got to build a team.
Yeah.
So like we have an amazing team. You know, you're talking about the volunteers on Saturday that are here faithfully. We need a team Monday through Friday because we're able to start going in these places weekly, and it can't just be me and it can't just be Alex. So to the men's rehab, to the women's rehab, to Orange County Jail, to the prisons now. And so that's one thing that we're praying for is God to build out a team Monday through Friday to be able to go in to these places, represent Freeway, do Bible studies, teach discipleship. And so that's a big one that we have coming up that we're really just praying a lot about and just focusing on because that's a lot of open doors.
Yeah.
And I mean, the rehabs and the prisons and the jails, you literally have a captive audience. They're not going anywhere. They don't have any other choice. Like, they're there. And so you do have a different kind of attention there, and they're willing to give something a try. So that's a big one. And then we are going to work on trying to get some more vans. With our numbers, we just we can't keep picking more people up and more people up. So we had 2 other rehabs reach out, and they asked us if we could start picking up their people on Saturday nights, and we had to tell them yes, but not yet. We don't have the vans yet, and so that's a big one going into that we have.
Yeah, and the more people we pick up, the more space we're gonna need. You know, and so that's another thing too. In 2024, we're praying that God would open up or help us see how we can facilitate the room to make more space, you know, and just get as many people as we can who want to be there in there. So, yeah,
that's incredible.
That also comes with volunteers. Our volunteers have been amazing, but we
need somebody to drive the vans that we're going to get.
We're in desperate need of more volunteers, especially for food, clothing, children's ministry, and van ministry right now, because we have great volunteers, but it is our core ones, and they've been there, and with the growth, we need more. We don't want to burn anybody out. And God's growing us, so all the other areas have to grow with that if we want to steward it well. So that's another big prayer is through just growing that.
Yeah, and that one way to grow that volunteer base is through other churches. You know, we're not just OBC doing this. Janet and Neil are from a different church. We have other people from other churches, and so that's another thing I'd love to see more in 2024 is more local churches coming and being part of what's already happening. Maybe bringing a whole team to cover the food for the night, or to cover the childcare and clothing for the night, or bring a worship team and lead us in worship that night. So that's another way that you just see the Big C church coming together. Not being territorial, not being, you know, oh, well, that's OBC. No, this is actually God's ministry, and we're all part of it. So, so that's another way that I hope to see our volunteer base grow is from other churches coming in and partnering.
And we had one church provide vans, right?
What's
the story with that?
So Eastland Baptist Church down the street, they're allowing us to use 2 of their vans on Saturday night. So we have our big bus, which takes a CDL driver. So if there's any CDL drivers with passenger endorsement and air brake endorsement watching this or listening to this,
or want to go get it,
there you go.
We need you bad, because Jeff Light is our only one, and he's amazing. He's been such a blessing, him and Connie. But when he's not available, that bus holds 30 people. So that's 30 people that were down that night. So they've allowed us to use 2 vans on Saturday nights. And it's down the street, which is nice to pick it up. We are using our volunteers right now to drive those vans. But yeah, like Alex said, like that's something so tangible. Like if you're a church here in the local area, I mean, what better way to reach the people in your own backyard? Come in once a quarter. And you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to do it on your own. Like God has blessed us to have it working in a plan, and it's well oiled. You just show up and we're alongside you, and you're reaching people in your own community. So that's such a good, easy way with that. And then going into 2024, our big thing, March 1st, we're going to do our first, it will be an annual Night of Giving. It's going to be called Save Our City Night of Giving. And we're going to partner with Freeway Sanford. And our goal is going to be to raise money for us to be able to operate and do the things we do. I mean, just right now, with the numbers we're at, we're spending almost $3,000 a month just to feed people.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Not gas, not insurance, clothing, everything else we have to buy that's not even included. So that's not fun things to raise money for, but it's necessary, because here's the reality is a lot of people don't come to Freeway because they want to hear worship and a message. They're coming because they know they're going to get a hot meal and they're going to get clothes, and they're willing to listen to a message, and they're willing to listen to be a part of worship because they know they're going to get that.
Yeah.
So we use that as an avenue, as an open door. And there are so many times and so many testimonies that they came just for that and they left a new creation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just continue doing that. So that's something we're praying for. We're really excited for. We're going to start sending out invites for that. But we have 30 tables, and we need 30 table sponsors. It's $700 a table, and if you're a table sponsor, you'll fill it with 7 other people that you know. We don't want we love churches and pastors, but we don't want a bunch of pastors there. We want people in the community, business owners, people we can network with, and we can say, listen, this is Freeway. You may not be a part of a church, or you may not be a drug addict or have that in your family, but this is impacting your community, and this is how you can be a part of it. And so that's going to be something big that we're doing for 2024.
That's huge.
Exciting.
So, again, it's just such an honor to get to see God work in such incredible ways. And clearly, there are huge needs. So if anybody is listening to this, if you're in Orlando, what's the best way they can get involved or contact you to kind of figure out how they can help?
Yeah, so one, just for more information, all our contact is freewayorlando.com. It's got everything on there, gives you an overview, has our contact email. So that would be the best way. Or through our Facebook page, Freeway Orlando. You can message us on there. We're pretty quick at replying back. And yeah, if you have questions, I want to know more about it. Like we would love to connect with you. We'd love to be able to just talk more about it and just tell you what God is doing, because it's 1000% God. I know we say that when we talk about stuff like this, but it makes no sense.
Really
I mean,
How quickly stuff
yeah.
grew and all that, yeah.
a 14-year addict and criminal that should be dead or in prison is sitting here with you guys today in a church with a wife and a son, and we're doing full-time ministry. Like it is 1000% the hand and grace of God to be able to be here.
Very cool. Well, thanks, guys, for being on the podcast. Hey, if you would, hit the like button. That just helps the algorithm. Comment down below. What was something that really encouraged you in this podcast? Let us know. We'll respond pretty quickly. So, yeah, thanks, guys, for being here. Thank you for watching. We love you guys. We'll see y'all in the next one.